to Blue Flag Bandits, the series that takes you through Formula One's back of the grid cars from F1 2010 all the way up to the present day, whenever that may be. And we're in our second season in 2011, driving the Team Lotus T128. And it's time for a venue we all know, and in the real world, at time of recording, we're a week away from what could be its final appearance in the sport. Yes, it is Barcelona Circuit de Catalunya, a circuit that's well known by the F1 teams, a former testing venue, one that perhaps isn't a fan favourite these days, but certainly been a staple on the calendar, and we've had some memorable moments. Looking at the layout of the new Madrid circuit, I'm not entirely sure leaving Barcelona is the right option, but that's a personal preference call. But we come here off the back of another mildly frustrating result. Let's take a look at the stand-ins. We are 19th with 0 points, but still ahead of the other Team Lotus Caraviano Trulli, both Virgin Racing cars and both HRTs, and still level on points with both Williams and both Force Indias, which I guess is something, although we haven't scored anything. And at the top of the stand-ins, our defending champion from our 2010 season, Mark Webber, is leading the way by 11 from Fernando Alonso, with Button, Massa, Vettel and Hamilton in behind, and Vitaly Petrov just hanging on to their coattails in the Lotus Renault. And then the rest of the field, Michael Schumacher, Alguersuari, Kobayashi, Heidfeld, Perez, Rosberg and Buemi with points. Red Bull leading the way in the Constructors, as you'd expect, defending Constructors champions from our 2010 as well. Ferrari P2, where they finished in 2010. McLaren in P3, where they finished in our 2010. And then Lotus and Mercedes currently the other way around. And then it's Sauber, Toro Rosso with points. We are 10th, still ahead of Virgin Racing and HRT, but behind Williams and Force India based on best results. And it was a 16th place in Turkey in the last round. Another round where I think I wouldn't necessarily say pit stop strategy was the problem like it was in China, where we just made a wrong call on tyres. It was going in a lap too late. It was technically a strategy call then, not in terms of picking the wrong tyres, but not really reacting to seeing if we'd gone to pit, we'd come back out in the 10th place we were holding on the MFD, and running a lap too long, hitting the apex with the rear tyres through turn 8, I think it was, losing the rear, catching a bit of damage. Probably wouldn't have kept ahead of everybody who we were fighting, because we had quite the queue of cars in behind us, the likes of Rosberg, Kobayashi, Perez, Alguersuari. It was a who's who of lower top end and midfield cars, essentially following us with purpose and intent for a long period of the Turkish Grand Prix. But we kept in the points, much like we had in China and much like we had in Malaysia as well in the early stages, but it all kind of slipped away from us, and we came home P16. Thanks to a few retirements, the rest are one of them because of us. Hamilton and Vettel retired from that race to knock a couple of guys out in front of us, and we were nearly a minute ahead of the HRTs behind, and about 40 seconds off the Williams in front. So kind of ended in no man's land, which was a bit of a shame, but is symptomatic, I think, of what 2011 is going to be for us. This car doesn't have KERS, is already down on power, and quite frankly, it's already been more of a struggle than the Virgin Racing of 2010. But, saying that, coming into round 5 in Spain, we are only 1 point away from our total from last year. We had 1 point in round 1, and we didn't pick up points again until Turkey, which in 2010 was round 7. So we're still kind of on pace with where we should be. But we come to Barcelona having already driven this circuit in this season, as you would have seen if you go back to episode 21, the Welcome to 2011 video. where we go to a testing venue, drive the car we're going to be driving for the season in the same AI setup, in basically the same settings as we have for the actual season, and kind of chat about what goes on or what went on in the real world season for that year. And in that race, we finished P19, kind of way off the pace of everybody else. There's a big long straight in this circuit. It's going to be super difficult, I think, here to really get on top of the rest of the field. So with any luck, there'll be some retirements. Maybe we can try and hold out like we have done in a couple of the last races and hold it for the rest of the race. But it does kind of seem unlikely. So why don't we get into practice here at Barcelona, refamiliarise ourselves with how this car drives this particularly well-known circuit, and talk about the real-world 2011 Spanish Grand Prix. The fifth round of the 2011 season was the Spanish Grand Prix, to a circuit that the teams and drivers were well acquainted with after many testing miles at Barcelona. This meant that every single team brought upgrades to this round, including Ferrari, who brought a new rear wing. However, this was banned after FIA scrutineering, meaning that Ferrari had to revert back to their previous spec rear wing. Practice saw a familiar story, with Red Bull topping all three sessions, though it was Mark Webber who led the way in the first and second sessions, while Vettel would only top the final session. There were few incidents though during practice, apart from one major accident for Nick Heidfeld, whose Lotus Renault caught fire. The damage was such that he was unable to compete in qualifying, but was allowed to race at the discretion of the stewards. With the withdrawal of Heidfeld, there was an opportunity for one of the teams regularly eliminated in Q1 to find their way into the next session. And find their way they did. Team Lotus's Heikki Kovalainen managed to easily get into the second qualifying session, beating not only his teammate, but also Barrichello's Williams by around a second, making Q2 for only the third time in Team Lotus's F1 history. At least, in this, guys. Kovalainen would not only make Q2, but he'd out-qualify both Force Indias to end the session 15th, being joined in the Q2 drop zone by both Saubers, both Toro Rossos, and the aforementioned Force Indias. It was, however, Red Bull on top at the end of qualifying, but it was Webber from Vettel, mirroring what happened in the practice sessions. Hamilton took third ahead of Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button, while Pastor Maldonado took a great 9th place in his Williams. Almost a sign of things to come in the future. The start was fairly even from the front row. Vettel and Webber jockeyed for position on the way down to turn 1, but it was Fernando Alonso from 4th that had the best start, dumping his curves and somehow avoiding the fighting Red Bulls by millimetres to dive at the inside and take the lead at his home Grand Prix. Alonso would continue to lead the first 18 laps of the race, but would fade during the first pit stop phase. Vettel retook the lead, and he'd never relinquish it. It was a fairly standard Spanish Grand Prix, fairly uneventful for the most part. Vettel took the victory just ahead of Hamilton, while Button was nearly half a minute behind. Nick Heidfeld was the real winner of the day, and if driver of the day was really a thing back then, probably would have been. Brought his Lotus Renault in 8th place after all of the issues in the rebuild that he'd had to experience through Saturday.
Brakes and tyres are at optimal temperature.
What can we do in qualifying in Barcelona? Well, much like China a couple of rounds ago, we're fighting a losing battle at a power circuit. But here we're without the leveller of rain, despite what you're seeing in practice. It's not forecast for the race. So we're really going to struggle here, and it's incredibly unlikely that we're going to match Kovalainen's heroics from the real world qualifying session. Our only saving grace, much as it's been through a lot of this season, is that we should really be quicker than our fellow backmarker cars. So I think, once again, 19th is really all we can hope for. Maybe we're just closing in on the likes of Williams and Force India, and we might be able to nick an 18th, but I can't imagine that we're really going to be able to challenge much further ahead. Here we are then, garage for Q1 at the Spanish Grand Prix, and
getting into the next qualifying session, but we know you'll give it your all.
Once again, engineer Andy cutting me off there, saying probably not going to get through. I feel he might be right. You did see though in practice that we were in wet conditions, which we're not actually expecting for the rest of the weekend, so it didn't really give me any kind of baseline against the guys I'm fighting with. But let's go out there, run some laps, and let's look at the fastest lap of the session, see if we can try and scrabble our way through.
You're losing a lot of time in the final two sectors.
Here's our fastest lap of Q1, and as you can see, already 8 laps into the session and in the drop zone. Fairly neat through turns 1 and 2, though the car always feels like it's trying to swap ends. But it's the long turn 3, just waiting to get full power and DRS open safely. Already trying to track down the Williams here, but only marginally off Barrichello, only marginally off our best time through Sector 1. Sector 2 is somewhere I struggle with most of the time. These corners, again, always just waiting to get on the power, waiting to open that DRS. And this chicane in the middle of the lap, really never able to get it right. But take a fair amount of curb entry and exit to get a decent slingshot, waiting to get back on the power once again at the top of the hill, nearly losing it as we tap the gravel ever so slightly down into this technical tight final section. Up on our Sector 2 time, but way off the Williams cars, bouncing over the little bump there on the inside, and coming into the chicane at the end of the lap, which in 2025 at least is gone, but now we still have to combat it, waiting again to get on the power, eternally just waiting, and then it's the straight gun down towards the line. We'll shave a bit of time off, but won't close the gap.
But you're losing a lot of time in Sector 2. You're exactly where we predicted. We're in 19th place. Good work.
Exactly where the team predicted, but another now almost inevitable Q1 knockout alongside the other new teams who we're fairly comfortably ahead of, and past Maldonado, who's the person who drops out with us. It was at one point Barrichello sat in 17th, but as you can see, Petrov and Hamilton quite low down the order. But we're knocked out, as I say, with Maldonado, D'Ambrosio, Liuzzi, Kartikayan, Trulli and Glock. Kind of where you'd expect us to be, really. That Chinese Q2 appearance and almost Q3 appearance looks very much like the exception to the rule going through 2011 as the season starts to unfurl in front of us. But race day, I guess, could bring up anything. I can't imagine we're getting any wet conditions, but maybe, just maybe, a couple of retirements or a little bit of carnage or maybe even a safety car might help us out. But let's cross over to the race and see what happens in Barcelona. Welcome then to the garage for the Spanish Grand Prix of 2011. Another Q1 knockout. As I said, the exception to the rule so far being China, and I think that might be the case for most of this season. Fingers crossed that certain circuits I really enjoy come up trumps for us, but there's still a few rings out yet. This not a circuit I'm particularly fond of, and in 2010 was one of 3 black marks. We had a DNF in Hungary and we're disqualified here and in Korea. So hopefully we can at least finish this race. Where we're going to finish, or at least aim for, I think we'll discuss in a second, but let's take a look at the grid order. Alonso takes a home pole position ahead of Vettel with Button, Webber, Hamilton and Massa in behind, so Hamilton recovering from a poor Q1, as did Petrov, who slots in 8th just behind Rosberg, and then Heidfeld and Schumacher. So once again, both McLarens, both Red Bulls, both Ferraris, both Mercedes and both Lotus in the top 10. Then it's Kobayashi and Perez who are setting the early pace in Q1. Di Resta, Boemi, Al-Ghashwari, Sutil, Barrichello, Maldonado got knocked out in Q1 with us. So there we are, 19th, ahead of the other new teams. D'Ambrosio, Lietzi, Kartikayan, Trulli and Glock. No rain expected. It's probably going to be a bit of a lonely race, I feel. We seem to be able to outpace our fellow new teams. Obviously us, Virgin Racing and HRT, only in second season of this sport. And much like the real Team Lotus, we just seem to have the pace on Virgin Racing and HRT, but not really to battle with anybody else. And somewhere like this, where the DRS zone down the start-finish straight is going to be a killer without Kurz, I honestly feel the team objective of 17th is too much. I think I just want to maintain. Our objective is going to be really terrible, and we're going to try and aim for P19, which will upset the team, but at least we can maintain our run of not being outraced or out-qualified by any of the other new teams so far this season. I'm pretty sure that's correct. Watch me go back and look over the other races. I don't think, looking at my results of 18th, 15th, 16th and 19th, I don't think they will have beat us in any of those ones. So fingers crossed we can just maintain that. We don't get DQ'd like we did last year, and we just kind of run a solid race. I guess that's all we can really hope for. Every lap is just adding to really trying to exploit this game a little bit more. 2010, obviously, you could spin it up at any moment and really ruin a race. Here, it seems to be a bit less prevalent in terms of spinning up the rears. I know we've done it a couple of times in Turkey and I think back in maybe Malaysia or Australia. But the more I can learn about this game, hopefully when it comes to circuits that I really enjoy, Canada, wink wink, nudge nudge, that we can use that to our advantage. For now though, let's go to the grid for the 2011 Spanish Grand Prix. Alonso on pole in front of his adoring Spanish crowd. There we are, P19 and Trulli down in 23rd.
Last race we finished mid-table. We need to try and do better than that. Let's give this 100%.
There are the lights. And away we go in Spain immediately, like last time, straight into Rich Mix, and we can jump Maldonado with a great start. Catapulting off the line, we might get both Williams by the time we get to turn 1, or let's get real tight down here. A bit of carbon fibre from the Williams. The Force India was a little sideways, everybody checking up into 3. And much like we've had at times this season, we've managed to avoid most of the carnage to move up into a much higher position than we should have. Di Resta tries to come up the inside. We hold him off. There's a Lotus there running slowly. That's Petrov. Kobayashi's going to get caught out behind him. So we'll try and send it up the inside of Kamui, who then goes wide, cuts across. We're P11. So we're not in the points, but we are much higher up than we expect to be. But that's going to bring with it its own problems. Kobayashi looks at the inside. We keep him behind us. Petrov behind. I think that's a Mercedes, but he seems to be struggling with it at the moment. Of course, he picked up damage, or he's got debris on his tyres from running wide earlier in the lap. Another good lap one. Another solid jump off the line, but this is where the problem's going to be. DRS not even enabled yet. Sander's got enough pace to draw up alongside. Make ourselves there into Repsol, I think it is. Stay alongside the Japanese driver and maintain 11th. Both Sabres in our mirrors. They were very much the best of the rest. Whereas in 2010 they were often found with us down the back. Very much the class of the rest of the field, but it looks like Schumacher and the two Lotus cars really struggling at the moment because they're not dropping us. A bit wrong, yeah, that's a warning, that's fair. If we can end the lap in detection, that would be great. All over the grass there though. Maybe now those three will drop us. And once again it's Kobayashi behind us. A little all over the shop, but yeah, top 7 of Scarford, then there's that little clutch of 3 ahead of us. And then it's the train I am the conductor of. Before then an enormous gap back to my fellow new teams, and then there's one car all on their own at the back. Somebody I think has pit on lap 1, maybe with damage or similar. I know there was a little bit of Williams carbon fibre into turn 1.
Alonso's the fastest man on the track at the moment.
Well, actually DRS just going to breeze by.
Keep on him, he might make a mistake.
So can we send it back on him? We cannot.
We estimate that Kobayashi should be coming in for tyres within the next 2 laps.
Perez has fallen a few back from that defensive manoeuvre. There's no contact. Being honest. A little bit of contact with the rest, I felt that. Constantly change fuel map. Run wide through 10. A foot plant down to survive a comeback from Delaney. Delaney to the outside, we'll slot in behind. Back on him through 1 and 2, maybe cut him up a bit, but we...
This is turning into a solid drive. We're 5 positions up on where we were expecting to finish.
As engineer Andy, we didn't make contact. It was a robust rebuttal, but enough to keep us ahead. Whoever was at the back was caught up to and got past Jarno Trulli. Trulli's pitted, or... Oh no, they haven't, sorry. No. Misreading the mini-map. Yeah, who's up back in a second is defend from Boemi, and that means De Resta gets back by. Gently moving across. I've got Boemi one side, De Resta the other. They're going to have to brake, and they do. To be in front of them. Oh, but I'm wide there. They won't make a move unless it's absolutely on. Perez has got past Buemi, De Rest has got past me, but we'll send it on him. Take the place back. Getting into another one of those races that I think is probably going to be fairly entertaining early on, and then it's just going to turn into a bit of a lonely cruise to the finish. I look behind, got my line all wrong, and I'm off.
You're lapping faster than the car ahead in sector 1. Use that advantage to get past.
And we're down to P17. A mistake on my part there. Stupid time to look behind it. 15 seconds clear of Catalan now. Shows you how far off the pace we are. Still haven't found out who's at the back.
That's Perez, go for the overtake.
So I'm closing up to these guys through here, so I'm alright through the final sector, unless of course I drive it off the circuit. A few of these guys are going to be going in. I'm going to have to avoid the wall.
There are quite a few cars in the pits right now. Watch out for cars exiting
Regain
the
a few
pits.
places. Too early on the power with ruined rear tyres. Found in our pre-season race. Exactly the same corner as well. Really check up to get in because of the tyre wet. The rest is in. There'll be another car or two in as well. Not really going to matter. It's probably mess up Trulli more than anybody else. Or will it? We far it. Looks like we're far enough in front of our teammate. There's Jerome D'Ambrosio. But get it slowed down on cold tyres.
Car's got a new set of prime tyres on. You only have to stop once now. One stop left.
Just got to try and hold off D'Ambrosio. I think any hope of catching up to the guys in front is long gone. Wide again. A bit of contact, a bit of argy-bargy. D'Ambrosio basically stopping right in the way. Really early on the racing line, and same again there. His tyres may be a bit worse for wear as well, right? Got the inside of the Marussia Virgin Racing car, and we'll retake that position.
At 17th place. You've moved up to 17th.
That DRS. Come back at me into one. Looks like D'Ambrosio and Trulli have come in, so they will probably get there. Barrichello passed. I'd assume Alcashari will follow him as well. Feel like this is going to be another race that gets cut short by at least a lap. We went a lap down to the entire field in 2010 before getting our black flag. It'll be quite that bad here, but we won't do full distance, I don't think. We'll do most distance. Still better than 2010 if we can just keep it together. Admittedly, they did nearly wipe out on the pit entry on our first attempt at a pit stop. Marbles there, had to cut the chicane. Adisswanto's still taking chunks out of me at the moment. Adisswanto has closed the gap down.
Your lead
Just
over
over a lap away from pitting.
He's lapping a whole second faster than you.
Adisswanto looking one way, then the other, and then backing out of all the moves.
You should consider pitting soon. Pit window is open, come in this lap. We're running roughly where we expected to be. If we pick up another place, we'll be right on target.
Adisswanto gets by. Not really any way of sending it back on him. Corner cutting warning on the way into the pits, so I don't, overshoot again. It's coming in behind me.
Go now.
Our lead cars.
Barrichello has a new set of prime tyres fitted to the car.
Catalan may have come in as well.
You need to let the car behind you past. He's not racing you for position.
Battle and Alonso.
Alonso's the fastest man on the track at the moment.
Alonso trying to fight for the lead up ahead of us.
Blue flag conditions. Let the car immediately behind through. You're not racing him.
Webber through as well. Ferrari only 7 seconds up the road. They must have gone in and got out. Hamilton's way there.
Hamilton's just posted the fastest lap of the race.
Top 4 immediately ahead of us. Currently on course once again to finish ahead of one of the established team cars.
You need to let the car behind you past. He's not racing you for
I
position.
assume that's Massa behind me.
Alonso's the
Both
fastest
both
man on the
Ferraris.
track at the moment.
And both McLarens. One of them is also pit in, because that's his fifth. That button past us? I thought we had. Maybe we haven't. Yeah, just waiting on Jensen Button next then, I guess.
Blue flag conditions. Let the car immediately behind through. You're not racing him.
Expected, Jensen Button.
Webber's really going for it. He's just put up a new fastest lap. You need need to let the car behind you past. He's not racing you for position.
Get how it was, but it's right.
Alonso's the fastest man on the track at the moment.
DRS from the Mercedes at least. What about trying to hold off Rubens Barrichello? Gap's coming down as I'm having to move out of the way. Distinct possibility he's free of cars to lap him now.
Blue flag conditions. Let the car immediately behind through. You're not racing him.
I think there's a Lotus behind me, and it is. It's that Vitaly Petrov. Oh, actually closing now on our teammate. As he's being lapped.
You're dropping time to Barrichello. He's around 2 seconds a lap faster than you. You need to let the car behind you past. He's not racing you for position.
Other Lotus and other Mercedes of Heidfeld and Schumacher. Pretty sure the car immediately behind me now is Barrichello. Again, fighting to cling on to position that doesn't just leave me grouped with the other new cars. I do believe the car immediately in front of me is Jarno Trulli. It is, it's Liuzzi, Trulli and Glock. Trulli gets immediately out of my way, but not out of Barrichello's. Helpful. Now Barrichello's through. But I should also get DRS off of these guys. Give me something to defend with.
You at a rate of about 2 seconds a lap.
We've actually put a lap on the cars we're really up against us. Barrichello has a think about it down the inside. Don't know if I'm going to be able to hold him off there. I think he's been caught. Yeah, he has. He's been caught by one of the Sabres. I'm going to put a lap on him, and then I'll come and put a lap on me in a minute.
Pick up the pace. The car behind's closing in. Flag conditions. Let the car immediately behind through. You're not racing him.
Kobayashi can just catch me in a straight line. Back up a little bit. Oh, Barrichello right up against the gearbox again. I know it's only 18th, but I don't want to back down. Any results we can pick up on the established teams are big results. Catalan will go to the outside. Later on the brakes, managed to roll off and get back in front.
That's 18th. You're now in 18th place.
Not going to hit the team objective, but we're currently fighting to beat our own. What we got on the grass? Trying to take to the escape there. Just keeping Barrichello to the outside. We'll get back in the slipstream. We'll get later on the brakes and go up the inside onto the our final lap of this race. Another one where we got a lightning fast start and certainly seem to have the edge on the AI off the line. With a couple of small mistakes as Alonso crosses the line to take the victory at his home race. We fight tooth and nail to take home P18. Made a couple of small mistakes, one of which cost us 5 places in one corner. Flipping some gravel, meaning that we ran wide here and we ended up losing spots hand over fist, but we will cross the line P18. One place gain doesn't really tell the whole story. But we finish 18th. Ahead of Barrichello, so ahead of an established car. Ahead of Catalan, D'Ambrosio, Trulli, Glock and Liuzzi. We actually lapped Liuzzi, Glock and Trulli, and I think we were closing on D'Ambrosio and Catalan as well. Up at the top, Fernando Alonso takes a home race win ahead of Vettel, and then Webber in third. Button and Hamilton fade away near the end and slip down. Massa finishes sixth, and it's Petrov, Rosberg, Heidfeld and Schumacher taking the points. The usual top 5 teams occupying all the points-paying positions. Then the two Saubers of Kobayashi and Perez, then Di Resta, Buemi, Maldonado, Sutil. Alguersuari managed to not stay on the lead lap in the end. But we, as I say, stayed in front of Barrichello, and I think that was good enough for us, I think. Yeah, running into the gravel, not ideal. Definitely cost us 5 spots on the road immediately, but I don't think we would have been able to hold them off for all that time to the end, and even then it was outside of the points. So it's another race of what could have been, but probably wouldn't have been. But we beat our objective if we don't level the teams. In the Constructors, we remain 19th. Barrichello still has a best result than we do, but we're still ahead of Trulli, D'Ambrosio, Glock, Cartagay and Liuzzi. The point scorers don't change. Maldonado, Di Resta, Sutil and Barrichello still also with 8 points. Up at the top, Mark Webber holds a 1-point championship lead over Fernando Alonso, who has pulled out a little bit of a gap over Jenson Button, Vettel, Massa and Hamilton. It's now just 13 between Hamilton and Petrov, so he's hanging on to the coattails of that top 6. Schumacher ahead of Alguersuari, Heidfeld, Rosberg, Kobayashi, Perez and Buemi, the rest of your point scorers. In the Constructors, we remain 10th ahead of Virgin Racing and HRT, still behind Force India and Williams, who are also yet to score. No changes for Toro Rosso, Sauber, Mercedes, Lotus, as they fill in spots 4 to 7. Lotus now 50 points off McLaren, who are third. They are 36 points behind Ferrari, who are now just 8 behind Red Bull, so that Constructors' Championship battle is at least a little bit more feisty than it has been. But that was Spain. At least we finished this year. We didn't get black flagged this time. And yeah, we finished a lap down, but I don't think our pace just isn't there at all. Which means that places like this with long straights, Canada, I'm looking at you as much as I love driving there. Places like this with long straights mean that we don't have curves to defend and DRS only when we're behind people, and normally we're the front of the train as it stands at the moment. Development not going particularly well, not like the newer games where obviously you can continually develop as long as you've got the R&D points. In these earlier games, it's dictated by the team leader, which at the moment is still Trulli, but I think we're fairly close to taking that mantle away from him. At which point we can ask for a more aggressive development path to see if we can move forward, but that is still a long way off. The next race could go one of two ways. It could be really great, because a lack of pace is not going to be too much of an issue. It could go really badly, because I struggle keeping out of the walls. It is, of course, the jewel in the crown. The Monaco Grand Prix is the next one. In 2010, we didn't do too badly until we did. Qualified mid-pack, running in the points, and then copped some damage, ended up falling down the field. This year, I don't feel like qualifying high up is going to be a thing that happens, but it's whether we can try and make overtakes in the Principality. Join me next time for that one. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, and comment, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Another race without points. And maybe we might have to begin thinking about a 0-point season. Maybe our fortunes will change. Till then, though, see you for the next one.